the candidates handle that.
No doubt about it. Let's bring it right now. South Carolina's Republican Governor Mark Sanford. He's here to talk about John McCain's stance on Iraq before today's Senate hearings. Now, Mika, I knew this guy.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk about it, but you know, I was a member of Congress.
Yeah, you were? That's so hot. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Mark,
wow.
I tell you what, I get no respect here. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I hear you might be right.
I could tell them stories.
Yeah.
You're a boisterous one at that.
Let's go there, shall we?
I've already told them stories.
Yeah.
But usually the stories always include you and me in a room being yelled at by Republican leadership and about 200 members of the United States Congress.
Oh.
It was a lonely time there, Mark. A lonely time.
It was character building.
It was character building. So today, John McCain's going to be on Capitol Hill. It's General Petraeus going before there. You're a real fiscal hawk. What do you say to Americans who say enough is enough? We've spent too much money on this war. It's time to bring our troops home.
Well, I mean, obviously, to a degree, that's what this presidential race is going to be about. That's certainly one of the key issues that's going to be debated. And people will have their chance to make their opinion known in that process. But what I would say is you got to give John McCain credit for being unequivocal in his stand. I mean, he's been, when it was, he was country when country wasn't cool from the standpoint of Iraq policy. And with some folks, it's still not cool. But, we're a republic, and, the democratic process is we're not all going to agree on everything. But the real question that we should ask ourselves is, do we want people in office that will set a course and stay to that course, as opposed to being all over the map as some of the folks have been perhaps on the other side of the ledger?
Yeah, but yesterday we had on a Nobel Prize-winning economist who's written a book. It's called The $3 Trillion War. He said it may be a $5 trillion war. Can we afford to stay the course?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that what John and others would say would be you can't afford not to stay the course. One, given the investment that we've already made in that part of the region, given the strategic interests that America has in that part of the region, and frankly, given its impact in terms of geopolitics going forward. I think that one of the things that left folks with a very bad taste with regard to Vietnam was it was sort of a half-hearted effort. We were there, but you couldn't go across certain lines at night. And when I talked to soldiers who fought in that war, one of their great frustrations was, this notion of limited engagement. And I think that when you think about Iraq, I think what a lot of folks have said is, look, we have a vital interest in that part of the world, particularly given that Al-Qaeda is centered in that part of the world, and we need to be there. So I think what they would argue is that, no, we can't afford not to be there, given implications like 9/11 for America.
Governor, I mean, one of our vital interests, you could argue, though, is making our country safer, and there's an argument that this war is not making our country safer. And you asked the question, how can we not afford to continue? And I would think an argument might be the wear and tear, the tremendous strain on our troops and how they're wearing thin, and whether or not we're ready for any other possible threat and a possible escalation toward Iran.
No, I agree with you. You can't fight war on the cheap, and there are real implications going forward in terms of total military budget. But I would simply make the point that if you look at where we are now, and you look at, again, what's going to get decided in this next presidential debate to some degree is whether or not we stay, I think it's very important that you let people speak and then mind the opinion of Americans going forward from that point forward.
Hey, let me ask you a serious question, Mark. I have a lot of people have been talking about you as vice president, possible vice presidential selection for John McCain. I'm more concerned with the senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. He seems to be following John McCain around across the globe. Does Lindsey work anymore, or does he just follow John McCain around?
I'll let you ask Lindsey that. I think he works.
He's everywhere. Lindsey is everywhere with John McCain. I mean, London, Lindsey, and Iraq, Lindsey, Israel, Lindsey.
Yeah, same with
they're good friends, and I'm sure Lindsey's a good sounding board for John.
We're all good friends.
But one thing that I do want to touch on, just as it relates to national security, though, is this issue of real ID.
Right, we're going to ask you about that.
It's a little bit closer to the world that I operate in. And for those folks that don't know about it, it's basically the federal government stepping in and nationalizing the driver's license process across all 50 states. And inasmuch as Iraq has implications in terms of national security, I think this one does. And this one, I think, has a lot of problems with regard to being a huge unfunded mandate to states and taxpayers across the country. It breaks from that most democratic of all notions, which is we actually debate things in Congress before they're dictated to the states and the individuals, and this was never debated. And I think it's got serious security threats going forward, and it creates this illusion of security, while in fact I think making us less secure in the long run. So one of the things I would beg for your watchers and listeners out there to take an interest in over the next 18 months is not just the presidential election, but what happens with regard to a national ID card that might be coming your way.
All right.
Getting a lot done this morning.
That is very good. Mark, thank you so much. That is a very important issue. I think more importantly, though, is the fact that you're on the short list for vice president.
Oh, please.
Has John McCain talked to you about that yet?
I don't know. Has he talked to you about it yet? No, he ain't talked to me.
He ain't talking to me.
Yes,
now, Hillary Clinton has.
Okay.
I may be on Hillary's ticket.
You know.
But
good luck with it.
Yeah. What about you? I mean, because if you're asked, I hope you'll accept, because I'd like to know a vice president personally.
Would you, Governor?
Will you do that for me?
I'll call you when I get the call, Joe.
Okay, very good. I'll be waiting. Good to talk to you again.
As well.
All right. So,
that's very nice.
He's such a pro. He's got a flu. He's not feeling well.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
He's great. I've got so many stories about Mark Sanford, but I can't tell them.
Maybe you should put them in news you can't use.
Well, no, but you can use these because it's always about him standing up to authority, and he fights the law and he wins. It's great. Anyway, coming up next, Willie Geist. He's going to have the news you just can't use when we return.